right, gents. Welcome to the Resource Insider podcast today.
Thanks, Jamie. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
All right, so Adam Lundin, Jack Lundin. Today we're going to sit down. We're going to talk about the Lundin Group. We're going to talk about the companies that you guys are specifically working with and running. We're going to talk about the mining, metals, and energy industry in general, and probably what other shit I can think of up on the spot. So
Perfect.
I think the best way to start, you guys, your family is often known as the Lundin Group in mining and in the energy space as well. I think a good place to start is defining, what the Lundin Group is, because it's not one individual publicly traded company. It's not a Barrick. It's not a, First Quantum. It's not something like that, but it's a collection of companies. So
Correct.
how does this all fit together? And where do you guys fit into the whole ecosystem?
Yeah, I think I can touch on the Lundin Group, and then maybe Jack can touch where we play a role today. But I think with the Lundin Group, the common conception is that this is like a big conglomerate, and Lundin Group is a listed entity. It's not. It's an umbrella of a dozen or so companies where you have a common theme with the family being the biggest shareholder, and you see overlap with certain directors on certain boards.
Yeah, I guess what makes it a Lundin Group company is either we're large shareholders or we have a significant amount of our team in place that's running these companies. There's a lot of overlap, as Adam was saying, on the board of directors, and that's kind of what makes it a Lundin Group company. But it's not an incorporated company. It's Lundin Group is, as Adam said, an umbrella. And where we fit in at the moment is we sit on several boards. So I'm a director of Lundin Mining, and I'm on the board I'm an advisor to the board of Jose Maria. And I'm the CEO and president of Bluestone Resources at the moment. And Adam is chairman of Philo, and he's CEO, president, and director of Jose Maria. And I think Lundin Energy as well, as a director of Lundin Energy.
And how many companies would you say make up the group? Oh, well, let's stay first with the mining section, and then with energy and petroleum.
Yeah, with mining, you got Lundin Mining, Jose Maria, Philo, NGX, Bluestone, Lucara.
Oh, yeah.
And then on the oil side, you have Lundin Energy, Africa Energy, International Petroleum Corp. And then we have Etrion, which is a solar company, which we just sold our assets in, and will be giving cash to shareholders.
How do most of these things start? Do you guys kind of incubate them from scratch, or someone you've worked with for a long time has an idea and they come to you and say, hey guys, I got an idea for exploration or an acquisition? Or do you see opportunities and say, look, that's something that looks like we want to get involved in. Let's put some money out and take it over and bring it into the group?
I think it really varies. Like, there was never we need to have this set amount of companies. You kind of go with the opportunity, and you kind of go with what's going to create the most shareholder value. For instance, like NGX Resources had the land and made 3 discoveries: Filo del Sol, Los Helados, and Jose Maria. And then as those deposits grew and could stand on their own 2 feet, and we have success with the single asset model, they all got spun out and they're all on their own now. And then, Jack's experience now, he's with Bluestone, and, a guy with a knack for the business like John Robbins comes to our dad and says, hey, I'm looking at this thing in Guatemala. What do you think? We'll put, we'll put money into good ideas.
Exactly. I mean, there's no kind of one template that we follow. We just look at if there's a good project that people have struggled with or that we believe is worth going after, then that's what we'll do. And, another example is Fortress Minerals, which is now Lundin Gold. That was a shell company, and we were able to use that shell company to purchase Fruta del Norte from Kinross. And so it just depends on what the asset is, what the commodity is, what the climate of the industry is, but we're kind of looking for great projects to advance.
Is there a management team that sort of sits on top as part of the Lundin Group? Are there people part of that only? Then their services, be them financial or legal or whatever, that go down? Or is everyone has a company they work with and there's a collaboration there?
Yeah, so there's no kind of Lundin Group council, if you will. We have as we were mentioning, board of directors that sit on multiple companies, me and Adam being a couple of them. My two other brothers, Will and Harry, they're also sitting on some boards. And then, of course, our father, Lucas, and we have a couple advisors to the family as well. But, you know, for the most part, each company runs on its own, and we want to maintain that autonomy so that we keep that entrepreneurial spirit alive, which allows us to make quick decisions in the field. And, you know, not every asset fits together, but when you have an asset on its own, you're able to really focus the team on bringing that project into the next phase.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know this conversation might be a little in the weeds for some of the people at home, but part of the reason I want to talk about this is because it kind of lays the groundwork for how things are structured, because it's quite a unique setup for the mining industry, at least, and probably many other industries. You're the only multi-generational mining family that I can think of, at least off the top of my head, and one of the few groups that has sort of achieved this scale. And I want to get into that a bit, and I'm going to start with something that is maybe relatively well known, maybe not, that you guys have a family motto. Is that correct?
A couple.
There's a couple of them.
Okay, the one I have written down is no guts, no glory.
Yeah.
Is that the main one, or is there a better one that I'm forgetting?
No, that was the title of our grandpa's biography. And so that was the title, and no, that one's obviously very close to us. I'd also say, you know, no pain, no gain, for sure.
Okay, so I wanna start by asking, and I have Adolph Lundin some notes about his biography written down here, which I'll get to in a second. But how does that come about? These sort of mottos, these sayings that you guys, I guess, repeat over and over to each other.
Yeah.
Because that's unusual.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this one. Where did it come from?
Well, I think it comes from, you know, cyclical business, and being at the bottom, you're going to have to say something to keep a smile on your face when it gets tough. But also, you know, we're sometimes viewed as contrarian, but I see where that can come from. You know, when we want to buy assets and when we can afford them and don't have to compete with the huge super majors, it normally just happens to be at the bottom of the cycle. And so I think, you know, when you're buying Fruta del Norte off Kinross, and I remember, you know, the week that deal was closing, and I think on closing, gold drops, you know, $40, and you see funds that wanted to, you know, participate heading for the exit, and the family has to, you know, put some further capital into it, or you have to rework the deal. But no guts, no glory, right? Continue with it, and now you see it come to fruition. I think you really, it's Buffett says it best, right? With be greedy when people are fearful, and fearful when people are greedy.
So let me turn that around, though. Do you think that is a mentality that your family has developed due to working and success within the mining industry? Or do you think you've been successful within the mining industry because that's been your mentality?
I definitely think that's the mentality. And I think, you know, there was a book that was commissioned on 10K Fungarumi, and our grandpa wrote the opening passage on it, and he ended with, you know, I raised my kids and my grandkids to be fierce. It's a quote from Nelson Mandela, to be fierce mountain climbers. You know, when you get top of a mountain, you look around and you see other mountains, and you have to go climb them too. Like just always keep going.
Mm-hmm. What's, you know, in kind of talking to a few people and looking at a few things, getting ready for this interview, you know, something that sort of struck me about Adolph in particular, and I mean, you mentioned his biography. He's got a poem in his biography. He's got "If," right, by Rudyard Kipling, which, if you haven't watched this at home, haven't read this at home, highly recommend you go check it out. It's a very sort of manly, romantic poem, and like, it's interesting. It's the only poem I actually knew, and I think that's probably true for a lot of guys. But he seems to have this like real sense of romanticism and a sense of adventure. Like, would you say that really drove him earlier in his career and sort of setting up the Lundin Group as an entity and as a concern?
Well, for sure. I mean, and it comes back to saying you got to have guts, right? Because if you're going to be able to go out into the world and take extreme risk-taking decisions and not have capital at the time or not have a reputation at the time that you can really build on. He was able to, just through his charisma, through his grit, through his determination, and through his vision, actually having a direction of where he wanted to go, to craft a path that then my uncle and my dad were able to kind of look at and see, okay, this is where we're currently at. We know where we want to go, and it just kind of has resonated now to the third generation that me and my brothers and some of our cousins are working in. So it does come down to a vision. Like, it wasn't just kind of blind luck. It wasn't just going out in the world and trying to do something different. It was going to try and create value, and doing that in an industry that is not for the faint of heart, right? You gotta have that adventuristic instinct, because you're gonna go to places where nobody else can go. A lot of the projects that we work on are in rural areas where it's not a tourist destination. Yeah. So, absolutely, that's right.
What do you think brought him into the mining industry to begin with?
It was his passion for just natural resources. Yeah. Like his mom, we call her Farmore, but or we did. She always wanted her kids to be lawyers or doctors, and what he saw was, natural resources was essential for mankind, and okay, if the population's growing, we're going to require more of it, and it's super exciting. Brought him to great places early on in his career. So he fell in love with it quite early.
And I think to complement that as well, I think it was the opportunity that you do go to places where, there's quite a lot of poverty, and you can actually make an impact, and a serious, significant impact, and benefit a lot of people's lives, more so than many other industries. You're going to places that other people simply don't tend to venture.
Do you guys have any examples of that sort of early on, either from Lukas or Adolph, when they were moving into an area of the world that other companies had tried or failed or not even attempted to get into?
Yeah, it's very, very early, and it was first with in going into Argentina, and Alhambra went up we had a company, International Musto, and we saw Argentina opening up with President Menem in power, and then you saw Baja de Alhambra come up for auction, and we went and were able to secure it, and then moving from there and saying, okay, what's the largest undeveloped copper deposit in the world, and where is it? And it was, okay, in the DRC, the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And Anglo and big companies had this asset before and essentially walked away. So again, no one was doing mining business in Argentina at the time. Not many people were doing stuff in the DRC, but that didn't deter him at all. He wanted to go where the big projects were.
So, those big companies, they have a very different risk profile than smaller entrepreneurial companies, but they're not run by stupid people. There's a lot of capable, well-financed, experienced people there. Why do you think you guys have been able to see success in challenging parts of the world, be them Argentina or Sudan or the DRC or wherever else, that so many other groups have not been able to see success?
I think it's because we don't take a cookie cutter approach to wherever we're entering, whatever jurisdiction we're going into. If we see a project that has potential, we'll go in and we'll understand, okay, what are the strengths and weaknesses, what are the challenges or the concerns of the communities, and from there we work to put a plan in place so that we can create a strong partnership, and one that's long-lasting. So it's a long-lasting mentality, understanding that any given project is different, and when you enter a new jurisdiction, you take some key lessons learned, but you also have to take a brand new perspective and work to understand, how can this be optimized, how can you maximize the benefits, and from there you look at deploying the right team fit for the job to advance.
There's not many people, companies, whatever, in the mining space that actually do take a particularly long-term perspective, right? There's not many people that think beyond the current cycle that they're in, and how to, especially here in Vancouver, maybe how to get off your stock before that cycle ends. How have you developed that sort of mentality of, not just thinking multiple cycles, but potentially multiple generations?
Well, Adam may have a different opinion, but I think it's kind of the approach where we do cast the net quite wide. I mean, we can enter different areas simultaneously, and maybe we take a smaller position and watch that grow in a different company. And so we plant the seeds in multiple areas, and over time, you know, as things start to pick up or momentum builds on one of them, then we can focus more attention and continue to grow and expand that. But we never really look at something and go, okay, in 6 months I want to double my money and get out. It's more like, okay, we're setting the foundation for the long term, and we know that this is gonna, you know, there's gonna be an incubation period. It could take some time. Let's make sure we foster that and let that grow. But we also can have, you know, a team and resources deployed in another area. So you're kind of watching multiple things grow at the same time, and then over time, you'll be required to have more attention, and then you can make sure you're growing that team so it's fit for purpose.
Okay, all right. So I want to take a step back and think. So when the Lundin Group started, Adolph had a fund. Is that right? That he was sort of investing and buying significant portions of companies?
Yep.
And then Lukas, your father, founded, and operated multiple exploration companies, right? And was involved in multiple discoveries. Today, you know, you're known for primarily, I guess, buying sort of development stage assets, right? So what is the sweet spot of what you guys are focused on today? Is it development? Is it operators? You know, what? And I know you guys do a lot of different stuff, but like, what is the focus of the Lundin Group right now in terms of growing, in terms of acquiring new things?
I don't know, it's cliche, but it's always just maximizing shareholder value, and we're always aligned with shareholders, trying to be the biggest one, and it's doing equity raises, and everyone can participate. There's no sweetheart deals for the family. Our sweet spot is, it depends. It's kind of, you know, there's always a right person for the job, and it's tough to say where our sweet spot is.
Well, I think it to just simplify it completely. We go after world-class projects. We go after projects that will be able to generate value in any cycle. We're in a cyclical business. We have commodity prices that go through the floor or through the roof, and understanding if we've got a project that, okay, maybe it's in operations, but we see there's, you know, upside potential to expand that resource, or there's upside potential to optimize how the operation is going, then okay, let's go after it, and let's put a team. So recently, I mean, we've had success in taking on projects that can't get past study phase, and then we take it through study phase into development and into operations, and through that period, maybe there's an opportunity to merge or be bought out, depending on what the climate is. But again, it's centered on the asset. And if you focus on that, then you don't get too caught up in the other outside noise.
So would Fruta del Norte be an excellent example of that, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, Fruta for sure would be, our most recent example of how we were able to look at a project, see the true value, understand that there was challenges in a country, both political and local, and go in and study what needs to be worked out in order to advance. So for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you guys were in a great position in a bear market, which felt like it stretched on for many lifetimes there. Being well established, having capital to go out and to buy up assets that were out of the money, essentially, right? Today, I'm guessing that's not so easy, right? That assets are seeing much higher value. There's more competition to them. Miners in general have easier access to capital. What do you think is the sort of the best things to focus on at a time like this in a bull market, and hopefully just the early stages of a bull market? Is it putting your head down? Is it just focusing on the assets you have and making sure they're operating smoothly and optimizing the value there? Is it time to focus on grassroots exploration, like Rick Rule says? We're going to enter the first grassroots exploration market that he's seen in something like 20 years. How do you guys view it?
I think it's different for each commodity, but definitely on the copper space, I think it's the unbelievable time to build. And it is before the big companies are mandated to build. There's not many engineering firms that can handle big projects. So I think it's a perfect time to be building a copper project. And then also on the exploration side as well. There hasn't been a lot of exploration done on the base metal side, so it's good to continue exploring. I think with the gold, building Fruta del Norte at the right time was was great. I think you can still see some M&A in the gold space, but again, also a good time to build. I think if you're going out on copper and you're trying to buy producing assets,
it's
you're
not
trading dollars
idea right now.
Yeah.
Another focus for sure, and to kind of complement what Adam's saying is, we position ourselves during the bear market for when we're in a bull market, right? If we're in a bull market, like rather than recklessly spending to try and just add non-meaningful ounces or tons, we look at tightening up our operating costs and making sure we're getting our operations performance, because we know that eventually there will be a bear market, and if we remain disciplined, then we'll have good financials, good balance sheets, and we'll be able to look at making more acquisitions. And right now, I mean, we're in a space where gold price is high, copper price is going through the roof. Yes, there's been a little bit of a lull here, the summertime sadness, I guess, but we're positioning ourselves to capitalize on this super cycle that we're entering.
All right, I don't think I can let that pass. Super cycle. Why do you think we're entering a super cycle?
Well, we've been in a long-term depressed market. I mean, commodity prices have been hit hard for a long time, and then, of course, no doubt, the pandemic has changed a lot of things and changed a lot of fundamentals. But we are printing a lot of money all around the world, and that money has to go somewhere. And there's this, greenification. There's focus on changing, oil to become, or copper to become the new oil, infrastructure spending, and then a lot of uncertainty around the world that helps precious metals and gold particularly. And I know that China is trying to focus on keeping a lid on these commodity prices, and it's probably a good thing. You don't want to see commodities just shoot through the roof, because then it just sends everything out of whack. But there's just a lot of indication that we're going to be entering a long-term bull market for commodities.
A lot of the narrative that I hear is sort of increased nationalization around the world, political unrest, sort of moves towards the left. We're seeing a bit of that throughout Latin America right now. There's a lot of different countries, Peru, Chile, Colombia, are all experiencing unrest at the moment. Has that made you rethink where you guys want to focus, or are refocusing on assets in developing nations like Canada or the United States or Australia? Or do you still have this sort of appetite for the developing world, sort of frontier jurisdictions?
I think, again, like I think Jack alluded to it, but it's wherever we see potential for tier 1 deposits on the exploration side, or potential to acquire tier 1 deposits. I think you go there and you get a sense of, if you'd like to deposit or see the potential, you got to sit down with the host nation, and if they want to do it too, because it's always a partnership, then you have no problem moving forward. I think in North America or Australia, there'll be bigger competition.
All right. On that note, let's talk about your day jobs. Who wants to start?
You want to go for it, Jack, or you want?
Go for it.
No, happy to start. So the day job, I'm president and CEO of Jose Maria Resources. We're developing one of the only grass field copper projects out there. I think the other one is Quellaveco, which Anglo American is pushing forward in Peru. Obviously, you have Teck with QB2, which is an expansion in Chile. But this is why I feel like we're entering a super cycle. Obviously, on the demand side in copper, if these politicians really want to have no cars in the UK, by no combustion engines in the UK by 2030, it's going to require a huge build out of the grid, and there's just not enough supply out there, or enough supply to come online fast enough for it to send prices higher from where we are today. So Jose Maria, it's a huge project in Argentina. It's 6.7 billion pounds of copper, 7 million ounces of gold, and 31 million ounces of silver. So it's a large production profile. And we submitted our EIA in February, and we're looking to get that approved February 2022, and then want to start construction in the middle of next year on the backs of that, receiving that permit.
Okay, so that's Jose Maria, but not so far away is Filo Mining, where you are chairman, right? And you guys recently had some pretty good results come out on that one. Yeah,
Filo's, and I think it's good. We talk about timelines and how long it takes, right? after we sold Argentina Gold.
Take a step back, because these were all part of one company. You mentioned that at the beginning. What was the name of that one?
NGX Resources.
NGX. And so they've both been spun out as the standalone assets, right? So why use that standalone asset model as opposed to keeping them in NGX?
I think, and a good one is NGX was named is No Guts, No Glory Exploration.
There you go.
so that was the one. And we've been in Argentina for some 30 years now, and we talked about Baja de Alumbrera. After that, we went and made the discovery of Valadero, which we had to fend off a hostile from Barrick, and then did a friendly deal with Homestake. And then with that geologist, you say, let's do this again. So we staked that big land package, 99-2000. When that was staked. So here we are 21 years later. The success at Filo is unbelievable. You know, we're always able to put tons together in this region and find a lot of gold, a lot of copper, and a lot of silver. What recently just happened at Filo was we hit significant grade. We hit, you had some intervals there of 10% copper equivalent. And so now we got to continue to drill it out, and the system just continues to grow. We have a lot of, again, with that no guts, no glory, it's not timid step outs. We have pending on hole 51, which is 1.5 kilometer step out from the known resource. And so definitely a big program swing for the fences. Now winterizing the camp as we speak, and want to come in, we'll probably just do some more focus around 41. But again, you still want to keep that mentality to find the limits of this system. So we're super excited. We never thought we'd hit 10K Fungarumi type grades in the Andes. We thought there's going to be something there that put the system there, and we know it's a huge strike. And normally maybe those things, they're not always telescoped. So maybe you have your oxide and your porphyry is way too deep down. You're never going to get to it. But with it being telescoped, you're seeing that sulfides and porphyry is directly underneath.
So what does that mean when it's telescoped? You have the porphyry come up, and there's an oxide component over top of it?
And normally it pushed it up to surface, and maybe that thing that pushed up to surface is way lower down, and you're never going to find it.
I see, and so there can be a separation between the two, or
the elusive feeder.
Yeah. Everyone's got one,
right? And so to be able to come and hit it, and we hit it this year, and super exciting.
Okay, so most people watching this are not geologists; they're not mining engineers. Let's put some sort of broad strokes around what this actually means, right? So give us an idea of the scale of this now in terms of understanding that this is speculative at this point, but like what, given these new results, what are you hoping to find there? What is the potential that exists there now? What are your guys on the ground saying?
Like we've got a lot of expertise, come in and take a look at the project and getting different people's views of it. You talk to the guys who used to work at Freeport, you've talked to guys who used to work at Rio, or maybe, Ivanhoe. And so what we're seeing is parallels on the size of the system to Oly-Togo or maybe even Grasberg. And that's our view. We think we're at that size of system. We think, it's one of the best discoveries in the last 15 years. Again, that hole 41 ended, which was, hitting the feeder, ended in 1.2% pure copper. And so we still have never came out of mineralization.
And what depth is that at?
That was at 1,068 meters.
Jesus. How much does it cost to sink one of those drill holes?
Those drill holes you're getting up there. I mean, we look at our cost as all-in costs, G&A, camp catering. And so that all-in is you're looking, $750,000.
Yeah. Wow. So, okay, these are potentially multi-billion-dollar value assets, right?
Yeah.
What's Filo valued at now?
I think our market cap's around $1 billion Canadian.
Billion Canadian?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I'm trying to give you a layup here. So there's still lots of lots of upside for me, potential investors here.
It's important that we do a good job and get the story out there, so we get the recognition, and the story gets the recognition, and you see that you should have share price appreciation. I think Jamie Beck's doing a phenomenal job getting the story out there, but we got a long way to go with where this one's going to end. It's very clear what to do next. Continue to drill and drill a lot, and no, it's just going to continue to grow.
You guys did a financing consecutive of this discovery, right?
No,
you didn't.
No.
So
we don't have to.
You're all cashed up and able to continue exploration?
for what we want to do, we have assays pending.
Yeah.
Which, and so we're super excited on that. And then we're winterizing the camp, and we can get back up there and start drilling again in August. And then, Jamie and Bob Carmichael, who leads the exploration efforts, is talking about wrapping a resource around the sulfides. And so we've been drilling sulfides for the last 3 years and never did a resource update on that sulfide potential. So I think we're funded to do all these things, and it's going to be super exciting to see where that sulfide resource comes out. I think it's definitely going to blow the socks off.
And you're going to be able to come back to the market with a much kind of clearer idea of what's there, and then take it from there, I guess.
And again, it's going to be your initial resource, and on the sulfides. And if you're like hitting on these big step outs, you're going to say
extend laterally and vertically. It's a monster. So.
Is there anything comparable to this right now in the exploration? I mean, maybe Warintza. It's about the only one I can think of. Yeah,
I saw Dan Earls on the show. I know they're doing a phenomenal job as well.
Yeah.
And that's exciting. And again, drilling deep and starting at surface. So that's a very fun story to watch as well, for sure.
Well, that's about it. I can't think of many sort of copper discovery stories.
SolGold did a good job as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
No, there's not a lot, and it's interesting, right? That's why, as we thought about making a shift more focusing on copper, and it started a while back. It started, that view was firming up as we're drilling Filo. No one wants to participate. Not many people wanted to participate in the equity raises alongside us. The family ownership in Filo was around 20%. Today it's closer to 40%. And that's just purely because we were writing the bulks of the checks when no one wanted to be exploring. And that helps, for my belief that we're getting into a very good bull cycle. Because why is Filo having one of the biggest drill programs in South America when it's a little junior company? Shouldn't the bigger companies be exploring? But everyone was tightening the belt.
No guts, no glory. So let's talk gold.
All right, yeah, so I'm currently CEO, president of Bluestone Resources. So we have a flagship project located in southern Guatemala, the Cerro Blanco Gold and Silver Project. And I joined that company in January 2020. Prior to that, I was working for Lundin Gold on the development of Fruta del Norte. And right now, we've got a really exciting development because the project, which was previously contemplated as 1 million ounce underground, high grade, but good margins, smaller underground project, with the success that we've had in drilling and with the team that we brought in last year to advance with engineering, we do see this as a bigger scale project. So we've decided to pivot, and we've made that strategic decision to go with a surface mining operation, which means we're going from a 1.4 million ounce gold resource to a 3 million ounce gold resource and a 13 million ounce silver resource. So with just changing our interpretation, we've tripled the value of the project, and now we're looking at a project that's, one, much more economically robust, but two, much less technically challenging. So we're able to focus on training the local workforce, and it's because it's a bigger scale operation. It's going to be a longer mine life. So everybody's very excited about the pivot that we've decided to make.
So we spoke about this time last year
That's
when
right.
you were relatively new to Bluestone.
Yeah.
And at that point, it was planned to be an underground operation.
That's right.
And if I remember correctly, sort of one of the major criticisms that Bluestone had gotten is that, mining at depths in Guatemala, it's hot as hell, it's wet, it's hard to get things done down there. This kind of eliminates that problem then.
Yeah, you're still dealing with water inflows, but not for the first 3 years of the mine life, because there is existing underground workings, and about 50% of the resource resides above those underground workings, which means in your first 2 to 3 years of mining, you're above the water table and you're essentially dealing with a dewatered a pit. And so for us, really it was a no-brainer from a technical and economic standpoint. The big thing was to go in and understand if this was a project that Guatemala wanted. And so I've met with various stakeholders, the president and his ministers, and introduced the brand behind Bluestone Resources and the focus that we have on making sure we do this as a partnership rather than just coming in and looking at, making money for the international mining company, but this will be done with, as we've talked about, long-term mentality.
Yeah. How do you do that? How do you, both in reality, sort of make the host country a partner and also ensure that they see it that way and feel that way as well too? Is it about sort of royalties and tax issues? Is it about jobs? Like, what are the steps you guys take to really sort of forge those relationships so well?
It's coming in and presenting our approach and trying to be transparent and really, again, talking to local national stakeholders about how we envision this becoming a long-lasting operation, and going in and moving our team down there, spending time boots on the ground, establishing the relationships, and again, long-term approach, talking about what is needed to make this a reality. And once you do that, and when we come and we put our name behind it, then I think that resonates. And from there, the focus is to ensure we're employing as many locals as we can, because at the end of the day, we want this to be ran by predominantly Guatemalan workforce. And then if we can open that up, we have the opportunity to change the perception of mining in Guatemala. It has a troubled history, and we know about that. We've studied that. But if we do this the right way, there's a lot of prospectivity in Guatemala and a lot of opportunities to continue making success in that country.
Okay. Was there ever a chance where you guys thought, or a time when you guys thought, maybe I should be doing something else besides mining? Maybe I should be a doctor or a skateboarder? Did that ever come up?
A bit. Maybe when we were young, you have silly ambitions, but I think always like seeing our dad and grandfather doing it and enjoying it so much. It was, okay, I'm going to want to be doing this as well.
Yeah. There's a story, I think it's in Adolph's book, about him sitting down your father and your uncle and saying, well, one of you is going to be a mining engineer, the other one's going to be an oil and gas engineer. You've got half an hour to choose. Did that happen?
I think it was, again, when my grandpa started it, he was going to need people he could trust.
Yeah.
And so he needed his sons to come into it, into the business at a very early age. For us, and what makes the group is the people in the group. And so for us coming out of school, our dad didn't need us. He had great people. We had great people around, and so we had to go out and prove ourselves. And knowing that we've always, wanted to grow up and add value to the group. Me and Jack took different paths, but now, we're CEO of companies in the group, and always had that passion. So it was different for us, but again, my grandpa needed my dad and Ian. Very, very early on, and where for us is, okay, the best person has to get the job, and so let's prove it that we can add value.
So how did you guys get your start within the group, or maybe within the industry in general? Because Adam, you're from a financial background. Jack, you're an engineer. Is that right? So how did it start out for both of you?
It was always summer jobs.
Yeah,
and so we would always do, never allowed to sit around. That was never going to be an option for us in the summertime. So our dad would send us to various ventures, and it was good when you got there. It's here's the boss's kid. Like, this guy's going to be a wimp, And so when you get there, you have to earn your colleagues' respect, and by doing that, you're going to have to try and outwork everybody, and then they'll come around to you. So it's very good lessons on those summer jobs, and then just the people in the business. And we're great, and normally it's a remote place, so it took you somewhere new in the world, and then it's just a lot of good people in the space, and so it just reaffirmed this is what we want to be doing.
Similar for you.
Yeah, I mean, I was following the same trend. I was being sent away to different places around the world for summer jobs and getting that exposure. Mostly it would be exploration, boulder sampling, prospecting, things like that. So you're kind of learning the first phase of what then goes into exploration and then, building mines and operations. But it was always kind of those grassroots exploration stuff that we'd be, going to work on. And then, it's not for everybody, but I think because you get so many stories that come out of it, and such a good experience, and we learned kind of quite a lot of life lessons at a young age. And then, of course, me and my brothers were quite competitive and always wanting to outwork each other. So, if somebody's going away one summer, then you better believe that the other one's going to go away the next summer and try to do the same, if not more.
Man, nothing like spending a few months cutting core in a core shack to make you want to move up in the world, I would say. This is my experience anyways.
Yeah, cleaning rocks does get tiring.
Yeah. All right, so we actually only have half of you here right now. You have two other brothers, right?
Yep.
And they're both in mining natural resources as well?
Our older brother, Harry, is running a fund, Broma Asset Management in Toronto, and obviously loves natural resource focused fund. And then our youngest brother, William, is Chief Operating Officer of International Petroleum Corp.
Right.
And he's based in Geneva now. He was in Alberta for 5 years. Yeah, I think so.
What made you guys want to do mining over oil and gas?
I think it was never, again, it was, with our grandpa telling our dad and uncle, like, one mining, one oil. For us, it was excited to get into the business and where could we add value. We know we wanted to be in the natural resources. Were you always wanted to be in gold? For me, it's just where could we add value and that and go where the opportunity is, and that opportunity led me to first being CEO of Philo, and that was it. When I was in finance, I was probably doing more oil.
Yeah.
I started actually working on the oil side, so I spent 2 years working with Lundin Petroleum, which is now Lundin Energy in Norway.
Okay.
And then I went and did my master's at the University of Arizona, and at that time, we were looking at this acquisition, which was Fruta del Norte. So I followed that closely while I was finishing my master's, and again, just timing an opportunity to go work there, that was a no-brainer. So I think we've got passion for the sector, the natural resource sector, oil, gas, precious metals, base metals. It just depends on kind of, again, project and time.
Mm-hmm. And I guess this is a perfect segue. Did I read that your family recently endowed a mining school at the University of Arizona?
Yes, so we're actually working to put together a school of mines at the University of Arizona. So our oldest brother Harry went there for his undergrad. I did my master's there. We've got quite a lot of history in Arizona, and that university itself is in the perfect place for a school of mining and mineral resources.
Well, that's where David Lowell has put a lot of money as well, right, into the geology program.
That's correct, the geology and the mining program. So there's a Lowell Institute of Mineral Resources, which I'm on the board of, and we decided about 3 years ago that we wanted to pursue a school of mining and mineral resources, and it gained a lot of momentum. And just 2 weeks ago now, or it might have even been as early as last week, we were able to get approval from the Board of Regents to move this concept forward, where all of the mining programs, they're not going to be in their own department. They are, but they're going to reside under a school. So kind of like Colorado School of Mines, but we're trying to create an interdisciplinary mining education program that will then also incorporate things like ESG focuses, but really big, what I'm passionate about is using advanced technology, so artificial intelligence and machine learning and automation in the mining sector. And Arizona is a hub for that in the U.S.
So will the students going through there, will they be engineering students that go through it, or will it be
both
business students, geology students?
So there's mining law, there's geology, there's engineering, and then you have courses that you can take if you're focused on communications, for instance, or if you're in electrical engineering or whatever kind of discipline that you're focused on. You can go to the school to understand a little bit more about the resource sector. The goal is to create awareness in mining, and that's one way to do it, through education.
Well, it's an interesting way to do it. Like, I went to the Lassonde School of Engineering at the University of Toronto, and it was kind of founded with a similar idea to provide mining students with geology, business, finance backgrounds, and we were talking before we started about some of our mutual friends that went there with me, including Dan Earl, who you just mentioned was a few years ahead of me, and I've noticed that my classmates have had a tremendous head start in terms of leadership roles in the space compared to a lot of other universities. And I think because we were really heavily steeped in finance and business, being in Toronto, having a lot of professors that worked at banks or major companies. You know, I think one of our professors was the head of resource estimates for Barrick, for example. Okay. And
amazing.
Being able to bring all that together, you know, I feel like I walked out with a much more fulsome view of how the industry worked, as opposed to, you know, just how to dig a hole in the ground.
Well,
right?
Yeah, and you're not going to learn what you need to from just studying books. You got to get that experience. You got to be able to kind of associate what you're studying to real life examples.
Yeah.
And so for you to have professors that were working in the industry, you know, that is exactly what we need, because otherwise it's all conceptual and you're not getting that experience. So, you know, I'm a big believer of co-op programs so that students can go and get the experience like my brothers and I were fortunate enough to get by, you know, just
of course,
being,
yeah.
you know, in this family business, getting to go out into the field. But this is going to hopefully facilitate more of that so students can actually go and find jobs right out of college.
Yeah, I think it's extremely poorly communicated how exciting of an industry mining can be, you know, and how broad it can be, right? Like you're not necessarily sitting at the end of a jackleg drilling holes in an underground hole, right? There's ESG professionals, communication professionals, there's even newsletter writers and that sort of thing. Yeah. But it's such a broad range of what you can do, all the way from sort of the highest levels of finance down to, you know, building, construction, working on the ground. And I don't think people understand that, especially somewhere like Canada, where it makes up such a huge portion of our economy and finance industry.
No, it's extremely complex, mining. You need all disciplines, and it just simply isn't understood that to be that. One of the, you know, as we were creating this school, we did surveys to see where the students, what they thought about mining education, and my thinking was that they were going to, oh, it's a dirty business, you know, it's not good for the environment, but they just simply didn't know what it was. They didn't. Yeah. That was the majority, just didn't really know. So the industry has to do better at creating that awareness, because once people understand, hey, it's actually pretty cool. You don't have to be a crazy adventurer liking to work underground. You can be in HR and you can focus on, you know, finding people of all types of disciplines, right? So,
although I was kind of hammering on it in the beginning of this podcast about sort of a lot of the adventurous elements of, you know, in your family and the industry in general. And I mean, I'd never, in high school, up until my last year of high school, I'd never even heard of mining as a profession. And then my guidance counselor said he had a friend who was a geologist that like just worked out in the jungles of Brazil, you know, 4 months a year. And I thought, you know, that sounds probably better than a real job. So I'm going to try to go do something like that. But would you say you guys still embody some of that adventurous elements of maybe Adolph and your dad? Jack, I know you've broken at least one femur, if I'm correct on that.
That's right, yeah.
Taking unnecessary risks, is that true?
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, Adam and I, we both race dirt bikes. We both like to kind of go on adventures and do fun things. I mean, just this last weekend, me and Finley were hiking a mountain up on the coast here and got into some snowy conditions, but that didn't deter us. We just kept going. So I think, you know, we got a little bit of the crazy gene for sure, and I think it comes with the territory. We like to take risks and go and see different things and do different things, and I think that helps when we look at decisions that we need to make in the business.
Yeah. Is there anywhere, be it commodities or jurisdictions, that the group hasn't gone yet, that as you guys sort of take bigger and bigger leadership roles, you'd like to see it move? It can be in a commodity you haven't hit in a part of the world. Anything like that you can see growth into?
I think we have to be adaptive for sure, and be open-minded if something does come up. And but no, I'm super happy with what we're doing. But that being said, no, you just have to stay adaptive. Mm-hmm. And you see people not wanting to invest in oil as much. I think we're well positioned with copper. I think, be open.
That is a great segue to my next question, because you guys are one of the few companies or groups, I guess, that does both oil, energy, and mining. I can't think of many others that have a strong foothold in both worlds. And, you know, we've talked a lot on this podcast. No doubt you guys have had this discussion internally many times. There's a lot of things changing in the world. There's the whole energy revolution and green energy and a move away from fossil fuels. And there's a lot of talk about copper and battery metals and energy metals picking up the slack and the value to fill that place. I mean, Dan Earl, as you said, goes on here the other week talking about how he sees copper going to $6+ and filling so much of that role. We've had other people talk about how they see these battery metals someday being valued on the scale that energy, oil and gas typically is. Being at the sort of intersection of both those worlds, are you seeing any of this happening? How are you positioning to take advantage of it, or what's the plan going forward?
Yeah, you see it with people want to move away from oil, but obviously the cheaper oil got during the crisis, the more people used it. You saw demand increase, and also you see less exploration and oil performing very well. Of course there'll be a transition, but there's going to be a huge tail to that transition where oil is going to be extremely important. I think it's important to focus on your carbon offtakes and try and be as carbon neutral as possible. Lundin Energy sold the first, or I guess we're up to 3 now, certified carbon neutral cargoes. And so I think it's important, if you're doing the ESG right, you're going to have a good time in oil going forward. But copper, everyone wants it, and it's going to be needed again if people want to build out their grids.
What's a carbon neutral cargo?
So the standard now per barrel of oil produced, I think the industry standard is probably going to be way off of my numbers, but I believe it's around like 25 kilos per barrel.
25 kg per barrel.
25 kilos of carbon per barrel?
CO2 per barrel.
So how do you offset that? By buying carbon credits, planting trees, that sort of thing?
I think people are seeing through it now of, they want to see companies do more than just buy credits. That's a quick one, right?
You have to create.
And so what's good is the platforms in Norway are powered with a cable that's powered by hydroelectricity. So you don't have any carbon from there, from your main feed.
No turbines. It's powered from shore. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then to offset your carbon, I think their barrels are around 2.2 kilos of CO2, and to offset that, they've started bought into windmill and wind power, and also they're planting 11 million trees over the next 3 to 5 years. So doing a lot to offset your carbon production.
Well, guys, I'm getting to the end of my questions now. Is there anything else that I should have asked that I didn't ask?
I feel like we covered a lot there, so can't really think of much else. I don't know. There's a lot going on right now, and it's an exciting time to be in this sector because as you get into one of these kind of super cycles, as we've been talking about, they don't come very often, once or twice in a generation. And we're really well positioned. And I think the office here in Vancouver, you can see that. Come by and visit. I mean, we've got NGX, Jose, and Filo's a rock star right now. I mean, it's a monster deposit. And then on the other side, you've got the gold companies, Lundin Gold and Bluestone. And we're looking forward to capitalizing on the this cycle that we're entering.
How would you recommend investors who are new to this space, start to dip a toe in?
Would never invest in natural resources before?
Yeah. If you're listening to this podcast and you think, well, this all sounds good. Maybe I need exposure to gold or copper or what have you. What would you recommend is a good place to start?
Well, I think what the group offers, is exposure to natural resources, a big focus on ESG, and then also I think it's unique, and it obviously it's not the only company, but management, board, ownership, is in there, and us being some of the biggest shareholders, we're gonna be there, living with the share price as well. So I think we're uniquely placed, and we try and be as transparent as we can be, and always up for discussion.
Yeah, and I think You know, that's right. You want to invest, and if you're new to the game, I mean, it's hard to be able to suss out what a good project is, but you want to believe in the team that's behind it and the dedication and the success rate of, you know, the history of success of the group. And so I think we offer those by looking at the Lundin Group, and then from there you have access to all the different types of commodities.
And if someone only had enough money to invest in one Lundin company, which one should they choose? That's a hard one.
Yeah, well, I think if it's
you guys can have different answers.
If it's your first time and you're coming in a natural resource space, you know, for me, I picked the poster child, which is Lundin Energy. You know, it's a very strong company. It pays $514 million US in dividends a year, and so you're going to have that stable dividend. And then also these guys' operational excellence, they just continue to hit it out the park. And so I want everyone's obviously first foray or first investment to go extremely well. I think that's the one with the lowest amount of risk.
All right, good answer.
I would say the stock with the most torque at this moment is probably Bluestone Resources. I mean, going from an underground to an open pit, we've tripled the value of the project, but our share price hasn't moved. And you know, analysts are upping their target price because you know, once we hit those milestones, permitting feasibility study, getting into the development phase, we're trading at a steep discount to our peers. So it's of course higher risk, but I would say it has the most torque. I don't know what you think on that.
You know, obviously bet on Jack 100 times out of 100, and what he's going to do there in Guatemala is going to create a lot of value for shareholders. I think we also have to mention Filo. You know, we meet a bunch of people and they're always like, "Oh, Filo, like I was looking at that one and I missed it." You haven't missed anything. Like,
I'm actually that person. I've spent a lot of time looking at that. About a year ago.
Yeah, and I mean we all want to replicate what happened there, right? And through different ways, right? Because it's going to be impossible to find another deposit like that in any part of the world. I mean, this could be top 5 copper projects in the world, right? And they're going to drill that out and continue to create more value, and there's still a significant upside potential. But what was really cool when that happened was listening to the shareholders and having people send direct messages to me and my brothers on Twitter talking about how their lives have changed because they believed that this was a project, you know, that had significant upside potential, and they went all in. You know, a lot of geologists that took the time to study, and they now have created so much wealth for their families that, you know, people have talked about retiring and that they're so grateful to have been on the story. So, you know, that right there is a key motivator, and that's what we want to do, you know, time and time again.
All right, guys, I don't think we're going to find a better place to end it than that. Thank you very much for taking the time today.
Thanks, Jamie. Real pleasure.
All right, appreciate it.
Take care.